Welcome to Serves You Right, a podcast for people who work in the service industry. My name's Andrew, and I've worked in restaurants for over 20 years, and I am trying to answer some fundamental questions for myself. This is a place for servers, bartenders, chefs, anyone and everyone who's ever felt stuck in the restaurant industry, fired up, or just plain wants to do something else. So I'm trying to answer a question that occurred to me a couple years ago, whether or not you can actually be happy working in the restaurant industry. I still don't have that answer, but I'm exploring different avenues, different things that might help you, things that interest me, but all in all, I'm just trying to figure it out. So I've seen the burnout, the addiction, the passion, the grind, as we all have in the restaurant. I've talked to dozens of people from every corner of the service world, bartenders, chefs, authors. I've also gone outside of the restaurant world, trying to find people that are into the mindfulness game, what it would take to be a programmer, and anything in between. So if you ever felt like there's got to be more than this, what is going on? Why am I still in a restaurant? This show's for you. So let's figure it out together. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening. What if the dream of owning a restaurant came true, and it nearly broke you in the process? Today, I got to talk to Max Scott, my former boss, a construction entrepreneur and a fine artist, and a former owner of one of the most iconic bars and restaurants in Santa Fe. This was a fun conversation for me. I really enjoyed how we got to get into the difference between the romance and the reality of restaurant ownership, his views on service, and honestly just a great chance to catch up. It's been a while since I talked to him. So if you've ever dreamed of getting out of the weeds and becoming an owner, if you ever wondered looking at a restaurant thinking, I could do that, this is the conversation for you. Let's do it. How did you go from working service industry to owning your own spot? Because that's a dream that I think a lot of people share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So, it kind of happened naturally, I would say. I was working at another restaurant, and this would have been 2008, 2009, in downtown Santa Fe. And I had a good friend of mine. His name was Grant, and we were serving at the time. And Grant, this was, I would say, it's kind of middle of the road, mom and pop. It wasn't fine dining, but it was a step above, we'll say, big chain, right?
It wasn't Chili's, yeah.
it wasn't Chili's, but it was just a step above. But a great restaurant and very, did high volume. So. Anyway, yeah. So my buddy went on an interview, to a fine dining restaurant, quote unquote, and that was El Fadol, and he came back and he's like, "Hey, man, I had a great interview. They took me on. I'm gonna try and get you in." And I was like, "Great, yeah, sounds good." That time I was completely living on a prayer of it was a great time in my life. I had zero bills, zero responsibility. So it was just kind of yeah, all right, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Much like most restaurant jobs do, right? You just kind of go with the flow at that point in our lives, right? And so I went up for the interview and I met with the owner at that time. His name was David, and my manager, Jeff. And again, had a great interview. And so that's how I kind of started serving there. So I entered in at a server level position, and it was a great environment for me, right? I thrived pretty well, and so I was able to kind of work my way up to bartending, and I bartended for a number of years, and then from there went to management, and then at that point, I'd done that for a number of years as well. And at that point, Rich came to us and knew that we were deeply. Rich was another business partner of us who was
we'll have to talk about Rich too.
He was prospecting, buying the business, but he didn't really know how, as you well know, Santa Fe's market and Santa Fe's kind of structure of business owners. It's not an easy place to get into, right? And so Rich was, he was pretty savvy, and he strategized how he was able to do that. And so he basically, brought us in on the team, presented us with an offer to become partners if we could basically execute the deal for him. So he used us as a way to structure and make the deal go through, which we did, and then that's how we ended up becoming a partner of the business.
Sure. Okay. So what does that process look like? Is that like a 6-month cycle where he like comes like I'm like the day to day?
Yeah. So that was over the course of about 12 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so this is
I would
it takes
say
time.
it's not. Of course, everybody's circumstances are different, but I think nothing comes overnight, and it's a lot of hard work and also a lot of networking. I mean, that's the best part of being in the service industry is networking with people, and when a door opens, take it, take
Step
your
through
opportunity.
it. Yeah. Yeah. So did you have to bring any capital to the deal too? Just like
yeah.
Just curious.
In a way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a background in construction, and so at the time the business was the building was in pretty rough shape, right?
Yeah.
And so me and my ex, came in and we both offered up our contribution. So what I did was I did the remodel basically at cost. So I was able to renovate and do the renovation of the building for about $1.5 to $2 million cheaper. And extend that cost savings onto our new partnership group. My ex had extensive bookkeeping knowledge and was able to kind of orchestrate day-to-day operations on finances and so on and so forth, and really had an insight on the business there.
Yeah, awesome. And then we'll have to say hi to your pup. What's your dog's name?
Yeah, that's Roscoe. So I apologize.
Yes. No.
He's barking outside, keeping us safe. I'm sure there's a quail running by, and he's keeping us safe.
So Roscoe's in good company. Zeus, my Great Dane, has been a constant companion on this show. So if you hear him, he's probably barking back at Roscoe. So, that's awesome. I do remember that construction process. I didn't realize how, I thought you were just helping. I didn't realize you were leading it, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that was kind of the my sweat equity, so to speak.
I mean, if you add that in, million plus, that is that's real dollars saved.
That's real dollar savings, and on that note, the restaurant that we were at was such an iconic watering hole of Santa Fe, right? For kind of its hedonistic reputation, right?
Yes.
And so it was we got a lot of backlash because we improved the building, right? But I mean, it was in desperate need of repair, and we had people falling through the floor boards. It just needed a lot of attention. The roof leaked. I mean, it was the list went on as to what needed to happen.
No, the listener, one of the big things that I was told is before the renovation, the bar would flood nightly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but you'll appreciate this. The electric wasn't grounded, right? In the bar area. And so when you would reach to pour the draft, you would close the circuit and you would feel like a vibration in your shins, right? That was mildly being electrocuted. It was great.
A mild electric shock. Yes. Yeah.
You could tell that our old owner, he really cared about the health and safety of all of the employees.
Yes. Well, as far as I understand, he was interested in other aspects of hospitality, the food service industry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how long did that take to go from like purchase to reopen? Because I joined in on the end, so I didn't see the full
Yeah.
process.
So, we were, let's see, I would say it took about 2.5, 3 years to get the deal
Mm,
from the time we started the deal until it was completely finished. All the remodel, raising funds from other partners, and basically coming up with a product that we could serve to the public. That took about 2.5, 3 years.
yeah. Wow. Well, you did a great job. I mean, it
Well,
ended
thank
up looking beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
It
If
was a
if
lot.
you've
It was a
never
lot of hard
been,
work and a lot of energy and problem solving. I would say was the
yeah.
biggest things.
So you get done with construction, you open. What is that process like when you're in charge and the owner now of a iconic restaurant that all of a sudden all the eyes in the town are on? Like,
Yeah. So it was a great. I would say it was a great learning
yeah.
experience for me, right? And if you want to be humbled, you
Hmm.
will take that step, right? And it's an interesting transformation because you go through all of the emotions of as one would, but it's a pretty humbling experience out the other end because you've never worked harder in your life, you've never been more abused mentally or physically in
Hmm.
your life, right?
Yeah.
So I know that I often joked with you guys as a staff, and I just told people, hey, I'm just the plumber. Like I just fix the problems, and that's it. So I think it's kind of a funny thing. You're stepping up, but then ultimately it's like it's a giant circle.
Yeah. I've heard that business ownership is wealth creation vehicle that is wrapped in actual personal development. Like you
Yeah.
learn more about yourself than anything else when you go through that.
Yeah, no,
Like, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, and I think if it's a great thing for anybody to take on and do, if you
Mhm.
want to progress yourself, right? It really is because it's a wonderful thing, and also just taking the opportunity to step out there and do something on your own. Like you have a dream, you have this vision. Oh, wouldn't it be great? And it's funny because I think a lot of people say, oh, like if I own this restaurant, I would do X, Y, Z. Right? Everybody always has that mindset. Well, it's like, okay, so you should try it and see. Like it's never
Mhm.
as simple as just doing X, Y, Z. Right? It is like
There's a
it's
reason
so
that
easy to
most
say,
businesses
but
do the
man,
same things, yeah,
yeah.
over and over again.
Yes, and I mean everybody, and there, so one of the best things that I learned out of doing all of that is like, you're only as good as your team, right? No one person has the right idea, and it takes a village to actually make a successful business and to make it a successful serving. I mean, no, and so I think a lot of people would like to say that they could do it all by themselves, but until you're running and steering that ship, you don't really realize that it's impossible to do it all by yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Uh, on that note, how did you guys get hooked up with Shane Alexander?
Yeah,
Did you like find him or he find you all?
so when we were raising capital
Mhm.
to do the purchase of the restaurant, we worked with a gentleman with a private capital firm here in town. And we were having a dinner party with him, just discussing all these deals, and that was one of the missing pieces that we needed. Right, we needed someone to run our food program and someone to run our beverage program. Right,
Mhm.
and so anyway, he said, "Hey, I have this gal that works for me, and her husband is this great classically trained chef. He's from South Africa, and let's make the introduction." And so he did a private dinner for Rich at his house, and it was a no brainer. I mean, it
Mhm.
was. Shane is one of the. He's a great friend of mine, and and he was a crucial part of the success of our early operations.
For sure. Yeah. No, great food too. I still
Yeah.
think about his burger. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's like one of the a great thing that he told me is like, he pulled me aside, and I'm not going to do his accent because there's no way I would butcher that. But he said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right? He said, if you can put a grilled cheese on a fine dining menu, just make sure that it's the best damn grilled cheese anybody's ever had. And
Yeah.
I love that. And I try to I do that. I use that even in my day-to-day life, doing what I do now. It's like,
Yeah.
doing something, it doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be simple, but it has to be really, really good.
I like that. Yeah. What a good guy. What a fun, what a weird guy too. Is there anything you would have done different with Elf Roll? Is there any
Oh yeah.
regrets or like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. I think structuring of the business, also not selling myself short. I think when people, especially coming from from the bottom, and then they transfer over into the upper ends of the restaurant, right, so to speak, the structure, we're very overzealous and oh, it's going to be great and all of that. Well, one of the best lessons that Rich taught me was it's nothing personal. It's just business. And, I take things personal, and business people, they'll take advantage of people when they can. And so I would say, knowing your worth, when you get a deal presented to you, don't hesitate to make a great deal for yourself, because you get one opportunity when it's presented to you to do that, and then after that, it's not you're not able to do so.
Yes. A little negotiating skill goes a long way.
Yeah. And again, like I said, when you're usually people that are coming, have come up through the ranks, they don't know that. They've never done business at that level before, right? So it's a hard lesson to learn. So yes, I would do that differently. And then, maybe, yeah, I would say that.
There's all sorts of other things. Yeah. We'll leave that dot in there. Yeah. Yes. What kind of hours were you working during this? Just curious.
So, I mean, typically, coming in the beginning, 8 a.m. to, sometimes 11,
Yeah.
with
And that's
10,
not
11
AM.
at night,
Yeah.
sometimes midnight. I mean,
Yeah.
it's absurd. And, but, you have to work that way. If you want a successful business, right, you have to put in the hours, you have to put in, the time. And if you don't, well, you reap what you sow, right?
Yeah. Do you ever follow Naval Ravikant at all? Have you heard
I
of?
don't.
Oh, so he's an investor out of California, but he's also kind of a philosopher. But he has this thing that when you own your own business, you'll no longer have hobbies, you'll no longer have vacations. But then he says, but you'll no longer have a job. And so as long as you love it.
As long as you love it. Exactly.
As long as there's a big caveat there.
No, it is true. I mean, it is. I love food and beverage. I love people. I loved what we did. So there was a deep love to that. There are aspects of it that I didn't love so much, but for, overall, I think that being in the industry it's a wonderful thing. And I think everyone should go through being in the food and beverage industry at some point in their life.
Yeah.
Whether it's just a couple years, or if you do make a career out of it, it's a great thing to do. You learn so many skills about networking and reading people. I mean, you remember that bar, right? Just like many bartenders.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've got 20 seats of people that are all there, and you're the entertainment. So you have to strategically entertain each and every one of them. And some people want your attention. Some people maybe want to vent to you, right? Or some people just want to be bitter and angry. So for the people that are bitter and angry, I always took it as a personal challenge to try and get them to smile. If I get one smile, then, it's like I did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, with the age group that came there were a lot of bitter, angry men. Not all, but just a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just the craziest stuff, right? I mean, we had a lady who would bring a plastic bag full of dead insects so that she would drink the majority of a drink and then put a dead insect into it and then freak. And she did that at many bars. That was her shtick. She would just go and get drunk that way for free. and create like a big thing. Oh, dude, it's like, okay, all right, thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. Do you remember we had one door guy that was a flat earther, and I don't know
Who
why.
is that?
I don't remember his name, but I just remember him saying, "I haven't seen the evidence." And
Oh
I,
my,
like every
yeah.
once in a while, I kind of stop and think about that guy. Just like,
I wonder who it was.
no, yeah. What was
I
the
don't
guy?
know.
He was the door guy. He'd been there forever. And
Rich?
was it Rich?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. So it was two Riches. That's see, I was
Yeah,
thinking it was Rich, but
there was yeah, the two riches. There was
okay,
like the clean cut rich and then the hippie rich. There was the, and
hippie Rich
both
is who
were
I'm thinking of.
personalities to, really
Yeah.
really wonderful personalities, right?
Yep. He was a funny guy. Yeah. I haven't thought about him in a while. I thought I had his name wrong because I'm like, it can't be Rich. I've got it
No, no,
confused.
no, it was
Yeah.
the two riches.
Now, so I don't want to have Alpha Roll take over this whole conversation. You've moved on from this food and beverage industry,
I
and so
have,
how
yes.
did you get out? Yeah. What are you doing now?
So I always say there's a scene in Men in Black where he's like driving him in the car and he says, "You see the red button?" Like he's like, "Don't ever push the red button." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Just don't ever push the red button." Right. So I pushed the red button. And so yeah, I just life happened, some events occurred, and I basically just walked away and rebooted. And I knew, I knew with my skills that I could, go really into any field, right?
Mhm.
If you can make it in the restaurant industry, you can be successful in any industry. I am a firm believer of that. So yeah, I left, and I got a job with a local construction business, and I was running the operations for that business. And I did that for a number of years, and then left there, and I went and became a partner at another construction business.
Okay.
And then I got my license, and I have my own business. So I'm still currently a partner with that business, and then I run my own business as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
that
So do
called?
it. What's that?
What's your business called?
Mesa Verde Construction, and then I'm with
Mesa
Durabuild
Verde.
Construction as well. So,
Awesome.
yeah, we primarily do residential and commercial, new construction and remodels here in Santa
Awesome. I mean, I'm sure that's about the same hours as the restaurant industry, just
Fe.
a little bit early, front loaded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the good news is that for the most part, it's the night hours we don't do too much of that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more conducive for family life. I
Hmm.
have two sons now,
Oh,
and so
congratulations.
having
Yeah.
thank you, yeah. So having the time to spend with them is really important. But again, working 6 days a week, you have to again
Yeah.
run your own business. Nobody else is going to do it for you. So if you don't have the drive or the ambition to do so, then you're only going to go as far as you put in.
Yeah. That makes sense. Do you have the same kind of issues in the construction business? Is it all about finding the right people?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're a preschool teacher or if you're running a restaurant or you're running a job site, it's all about managing personalities, right?
Hmm.
But also finding people, again, going back to no one person can do anything. So finding people to help you, right? Because everybody has their strengths and everybody has their weaknesses. So what you want to do when you're putting together a team is you want to find people that can, pick up where your weaknesses are, right? So I might be great at this, but I'm not so good at this. So I find, so and so who's really great at the things that I'm not good at, and we can kind of mirror off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, it is about finding a team, and learning how we can all work together and really deliver a product that's worthwhile to deliver, right? And I have a lot
Yeah.
of pride in that. Doesn't matter if it's with the restaurant industry or with doing a remodel. It's like I put out a product that is my product, and I stand behind it, and I want it to be a good product.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, that is an interesting disconnect, though. At least I'm thinking about it in my head. The immediacy of service, it happens every night. So you get to see the result. And how long does a construction cycle take? Probably a years. Like,
Yeah, so I mean, typically on average for like new construction, right, for
yeah.
residential, it can take anywhere from 12 to 14 months, and that's actually construction. Now, the permitting process can be an additional 6 to 12 months.
Hmm.
So there's two aspects of it. So it's kind of like you have the permitting process, and then you actually have from the time you break ground. So from the time we break ground, it's 12 to 14 months on residential. Now, commercial, you can be anywhere from, 2 to 4 years, depending upon the scope and the size of the project. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we came in and working on a lovely new boutique hotel here in downtown Santa Fe. It's in the rail yard,
Oh,
and
cool.
that one's been going for 2 years, and probably another half year to a year before completion.
Yeah. How do you deal with such a long feedback cycle? You just know that it's gonna, or is it? Or I'm
So
sure you get like little wins along the way. Like now the walls are up. Now the
yeah,
electricity's
yeah.
in.
So I mean, I would say this is applicable to anything, but the learning curve on this is steep and expensive, right?
Hmm.
So learning how to project and strategize for everything that's going to come up, and then all of the unforeseens is really how you can weather the storm, because it takes a lot of foresight and planning, and then it takes a lot of day-to-day execution work. So it's again, that's where the team comes in and really helps you succeed.
Okay. Now, before you were working downtown at that service job, did you work construction before that or
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
side? Okay. Yeah, I'm just
yeah. So
wondering.
one of my first jobs, I think I was 12 years old or something like that. I got hired by a contractor to go put insulation in attics because it's a horrible job, right? It's fiberglass insulation and it sucks.
Yeah.
It gets in your lungs, gets on your
This
skin.
kid that doesn't know
Yeah,
what he's doing, get
doesn't
him to
know.
do it,
Getting
sort of
paid
thing.
seven
Yeah.
dollars and 50 cents an hour, and I was like over the moon. I'm like, yes, I'm so about that.
Yes.
And so that was the start, and then actually, you mentioned Rich, the other Rich.
Mhm.
Him and I did, before we took over as partners at the business. I was still bartending and serving, but on the side, I would do remodel projects with him, and we were doing, kitchen and bath remodels. And so he was a great mentor for me, just teaching me more about skilled labor and skilled trades.
Mhm. Cool. Yeah. Essentially, you found a job where you got paid to learn,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that first
essentially.
job, not much, but
Yeah, 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 exactly.
yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. My dad's a roofer. So I've always got like the slight skills around that, but
Yeah,
it was never a job that I like.
yeah,
I started
yeah.
serving when I was young and didn't make much, and I was like, I'll stay here.
Yeah,
It's
no, it's a hard
roofing's
roofing
hot
is
work,
a
and yeah,
it's a hard job. It definitely is a hard job to do.
yeah.
So hats off to all those guys that are doing all those difficult jobs. And it's again, it's a great, just like food and beverage. Housing will always be a needed commodity, right? People
Hmm.
will always go out for entertainment, and to do that, and then there's always going to be a need for housing, and people will always do remodels or refreshing of their properties.
Yeah. No, and at least for the moment, OpenAI doesn't seem like they're automating my job or your job,
It's true.
which
It's
is
true. And
nice.
we're
Yeah,
we're still at the early stages of that. We'll
for
see.
sure,
We'll
for
see
sure.
where
But
it
when when
goes.
when I see a robot connecting with a guest or building a house, then I'll start getting worried. But
That's it. Then we're running
we'll find something new.
and
Yeah.
that's true. I mean that is it. It's those connections that the human connection you can't replicate.
No. Yeah. I did want to ask you too, because you were really into this in El Ferrol, I remember, but your art, because you also do art, I don't know, on the side, I would say, or,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I actually came to Santa Fe to study art and be with my family. Great
Okay.
place to be. I know it's like
Yeah.
you sit down at any restaurant or bar in Santa Fe, and I would say about 75 to 80% of the people that you're interacting with are artists, right? So I got to the point where I
Hmm.
wouldn't even say that I'm an artist. I just listen to people, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, so classically trained oil painter. I showed professionally, and still do show professionally uh, on Canyon Road, and yeah, it's great. As of right now, I unfortunately do not have as much time to devote to work.
To
Uh,
work your dog or no,
yeah,
all the things
yeah.
that demand your attention. Yeah.
But one exciting thing that I really can do is I take what I learned from my art and all of that, and I try to apply it to what I do now, right? So what I
Okay.
mean by that is I just deal with how people interact with compositions, deal with spaces, right? So it's like even though I'm not doing a painting, an oil paintings per se, you can use those same techniques that I had learned over the years to implement in what I do now.
Okay. Yeah. There's sort of a thread of, balance and I mean maybe artistic creativity that gets applied to what you're doing
Well,
in your
and
current
I
job.
think
I'm trying to like work through that. Yeah.
yeah,
Probably
yeah.
didn't say it
So
very
I
well.
think that we all, again, going back, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, right? And
Mhm.
understanding and knowing what your strengths are, right, and then using those in what you do will make you overall a more fulfilled person, right? And you
Mhm.
will put out a better product, right? Because it's like even though we can learn to do new things, it's so much easier to do something that you know and love. It would be like you, for example, like when you get behind the bar or you're serving wine or talking about wine, you're in the driver's seat. That is what you feel very comfortable, very at home doing that, right? If you were to, get on the roof with your dad and start doing, all of that, yes, you could learn that trade and you know what I mean, but you wouldn't necessarily feel right at home. So I think being able to kind of, interweave and interconnect all those things that we really are, know and use, that's how we're going to, put out a
Mm.
great product in what we do.
Okay. I might take that in and sort of synthesize that as listening to yourself,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah,
You have
and
to have that
that's true.
connection.
So often we
Yeah.
don't listen to ourselves, right? We're always focused on everything coming at us from the outside world, and like, oh,
Mm.
I should be like this, or I should do this, as opposed to just learning, like, hey, no, you
What do
do
you want to
this,
do?
like, yeah, just stay in your lane, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's the best advice. Just stay in your lane and
Hmm.
just do that to the best of your abilities.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. One thing I never asked you about your art too. Why the animals? I mean,
yeah.
is there something that really draws you about the animals,
Yeah,
or?
so I mean, what I like to do is use those animals in kind of an anthropomorphic sense, right? So
Mhm.
talking about human topics, but not using the animals as kind of as a representative of those topics that everybody can meet on that neutral ground, right? And so that would be A, why I did them. B, my father told me, he mentored me later in my life, and he told me, Max, you have to make an image that people are going to live with day in and day out, right? So, if you did a painting of a bomb dropping on a city,
How
it could be
relaxing?
very
Yes.
yeah, it could be very
Yeah.
profound, right? But
Hmm.
is somebody going to put that in their living room and live with that day in and day out, right? So it's that's the other half of that. I found kind of a neutral image that I could get behind and still kind of tell my story and my message, but that people could still absorb and live with day in and day out.
Okay, that makes sense. I, in my head, I remembered it like I remember seeing one of a deer, I remember one of a bird that you showed us at work,
Yeah,
but I didn't remember anything else besides that from the
yeah,
picture. So,
yeah.
okay, yeah, anthropomorphic scenes. I'm gonna have to look these up. Where in Canyon Road are they? Do you
Well,
remember? Yeah.
I'm showing privately with Brad Smith. So he was the gallery right next door.
Yeah.
So right now, right, we are, and hold your hats, right? We're getting ready, excuse me, to launch a new gallery together.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
right now we're kind of, in the finishing processes of doing that. I don't. He still carries a couple of my paintings. I don't have a ton of inventory. He has just a couple of my paintings. But other than that, yeah, we're and then where Santa Fe's changed a lot. So Canyon Road might not be what it used to be. I would say.
Yeah. Can you tell me about
And
that? I haven't been in 7 years, 8 years now.
yeah, so I mean, Canyon Road was a cultural hub in Santa Fe, I would say, and kind of interesting history about Canyon Road. It was originally it was kind of the barrio of Santa Fe, right downtown. You had all the affluent people, and then on the outskirts, just like any other urban environment, you have kind of the lower income people, the ghetto, whatever. And so, those lower income places and those ghettos, they usually attract artists, musicians, writers, right? And so those people will create a scene, right? They have a local bar where now you have these fabulous musicians playing music, or all of a sudden there's painters just painting, and so on and so forth. And so what happens is that the more affluent people, they love that scene, right? Usually, if you go to their areas, it's a lot less lively, and it's a little bit
Yeah.
more
Clinical, in fact.
clinical.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, then they start to take note of the scene, and they come in. And they fall in love with it. And this is so great, right? And so they start buying up the real estate of the property there, right? Which in turn forces all of the artists, the musicians, and writers out of those areas. And that's where you get kind of a weird effect, which we call the Winnebago effect, that you're left with kind of a soulless and lifeless tourist destination, right? So Canyon Road, starting in the 90s, really became one of the art meccas and a food mecca for the United States. I mean, I believe that Santa Fe is the third largest art market in the U.S. behind New York and Los Angeles, right?
Which is crazy. There are like
Which is
50,000
crazy, and
people that
it's
live there. Yeah.
100% because of Canyon Road, right? Or was. And then, equally, we had these fabulous restaurants that came, and I know you've worked with a couple of other, restaurants and stuff like that. But I think a lot of that, if I recall correctly, was there was a group out of Las Vegas, Nevada, that came to Santa Fe and started a couple of exceptional restaurants, really put Santa Fe on the map, right? In conjunction with a couple of other chefs that came maybe from Spain and from Mexico. But for the most part, yeah, they just all of a sudden in the late, mid to late 90s, all of a sudden we're like on the restaurant scene as well, right? I mean, we're putting out great food, really put us on the map. I think that whole era is kind of dying
Yeah.
for both the art scene and the food scene in Santa Fe. I think there's a lot of people that are hanging on to reputations of the past, and I kind of think that we are. I think it's in due time, and I think there's a couple of people that are doing it for some fresh ideas and some new blood, yeah, to kind of revitalize the market here.
Well, yeah, I feel like from talking to people that the rail yard district is kind of where things are starting to move.
Yeah,
Like some of the more exciting energy down there.
exactly. And so, kind of identifying these new areas, because Santa Fe is it's so stubborn, and it wants to stay like, oh, we've got our downtown, and we've got our Canyon Road, and all that, and it's like, yeah, but there's other possibilities out there, right? And the same thing on the art scene. It's like, what we have is we have a lot of excuse me. My dog is protecting me from a quail. We have a bunch of quails that come through our yard in the morning.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So the art scene is frustrating, because we have people that are doctors and lawyers that move to Santa Fe, fall in love with it because of its its artist kind of vibe, and so they retire their lives as their professional career or lives, and then they move to Santa Fe and they literally buy their own gallery. They show only their work and their friends' work, right? So you're
Mhm.
kind of like weeding out like really good talent at that point, right? And it's just basically like they're just curating their own like friends and their own work, which usually, not always, but usually is subpar.
Yeah. Um, so I'm very transparently not an artist, but you remember
Well,
my
that's not
wife,
true.
Anne,
That's not
right?
true.
Oh,
The
well,
word
uh,
artist, right? I mean, you can
a,
be an artist
a
in your
liquid
trade.
artist,
Yes.
sure, yes. But do you remember my wife, Anne?
I
I
do.
know you met
Yes.
her. Yeah. So
Yes.
she's very much the art side of the relationship. And
Yeah.
she would even say she found more interesting art in Texas before
Absolutely.
she moved to New Mexico,
Yeah.
which
And again, I
I could
think that
see.
we have a
Yeah.
lot of riding on the past, riding on the
Mhm.
heels, right? Of like, and don't get me wrong, there's great artists in Santa Fe. I mean, there
Yeah.
are wonderful artists in Santa Fe, but I think there's a lot of kind of like tired work that's just put mass
Mhm.
produced and just put out there. Like, all right, here it is. So you kind of become, artists at a certain point, and this is something that I hope never to be, and or that I have kind of like seen myself going down, where it's just kind of on autopilot. And it's just like, all right, this I know that this sells, so do it like this, put it up, sell it, there you go. So you're
The
basically
factory
just
artist kind of.
yeah, you basically just become mechanized and you're just putting out a product that sells, which is nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that, right? Because I mean, making a living as an artist, that's kind of what you have to do,
Yeah.
and not in all instances, but it is, it is a formula that works.
I will say my restaurant sells more Camus than anything else,
There you go.
and will sell it all day, and we sell it by the glass, and people love it. And
You love it. It's just like, it's like
yes,
fast food. It's like
I'll
you just sell it all day. There you go.
I'll cry about it at the bank every night. Yeah. So no, I definitely
And
get that pressure.
giving people the opportunity to have those comforts, right? And it's like they
Mhm.
know it, and now they were going to go with that,
Yeah. Well, I did an interview with a mindfulness Dr. Shalini, and a lot of what we talked about is in the restaurant industry. If you work at a steakhouse like I do, it's everyone that comes in, they get a steak, and so it's like, how do you approach every situation uniquely when you kind of know what you're going into? When
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you have
but
to have expectations of what you're going into,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean that you can't add your own flair to it, or,
hmm
and that's something that I think, being servers, it was one of my favorite parts of it because yeah, so you're going into a steakhouse, right? So
hmm
you could sell people the steak, right? But you, as the server, you have the opportunity to curate that dinner. So let's say that, I mean, I just went to a local restaurant in town and they had frog legs on the menu. And so we, of course,
ah,
like somebody you don't see. So, throw a flair in there, give them curate a dining experience that isn't what they went in there expecting. So I mean, yes, again, just like the art, you have that product that sells, and we know we can sell that steak, we know we can sell that filet, but what if there is this other product that we could change it up, because ultimately the client's going to have a better experience overall if you do that, right? And
mhm.
yes, it's a little bit more work on the server's end, but it makes our job more entertaining, and there's a little bit more of a challenge to it, and it makes it a little less mundane day in and day out, because doing the same thing day in and day out, it can get very mundane.
Yeah, no. You say as a now in construction and with kids, so I'm
Yes,
sure there's
yes,
a lot of that. But I
yes.
mean, you get to see a progress. There's always that,
Well, and
week by week.
ultimately, with construction, one of the best things about that, and kind of leaving the restaurant industry and going into that, I'm never. I mean, when I like right now, we're doing about 6 or 7 different projects, right? So
Mm,
each day, I'm constantly going to a new environment, right? So as opposed to in the restaurant, I was at the same environment, for 10 to 12 hours
yeah,
every day, day in and day out. So even though I'm doing the same tasks, right? I'm in a different environment. I'm in a different energy. So that is definitely something that I enjoy about what I do now.
sure. No, that's cool. Max, thanks for spending the time with me today.
Thank
I
you for
really
having me.
appreciate you carving out a few moments.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
getting
It's
someone to
great.
watch the dog.
Well, yeah, he's like I said, he's protecting me. He's a great guard dog, protecting me from those quails because they will, they'll come in here and just take
Yeah.
me out.
Have you ever been to Omaha, Nebraska? Just curious.
You know, I've
No,
driven through. Yeah, I,
that's what most people say. Yeah. So strangely enough, there's a mutation with squirrels, and there's sometimes like solid black coating like fur squirrels will arise, and whatever reason, one of the largest percentages in the world is like Omaha, Nebraska. And so my dog is crazy about these solid black squirrels that run around. And at first, when me and Ann moved here, we were like, "Is this a different species? Like, what
yeah.
is this?
Is
Like,
it
I've
like
never seen
you
it.
think a camouflage or something?
I don't know, but yeah, like if you ever come up here, just solid black fur squirrels, it's a thing.
Oh,
And so, but I mean, it drives Zeus crazy. He thinks they're possessed devils. I think I
yeah.
don't know, but he
Well,
like
and he has to protect you. He has to
yeah,
protect you, right?
yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but oh man, it freaks him out. So I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Last question. Where should people follow you, or what should people expect from you in the future? When's that hotel open? Like,
Yeah,
some of that cool
yeah.
stuff.
So the Parade of Homes in Santa Fe, the Santa Fe area home builders puts on the Parade of Homes. One way, that you really can touch base with us, and then social media. We have a presence out there as well. So those are the two places that is really easy and accessible. Other than that, just come to Santa Fe, New Mexico, experience this wonderful city. And so many people forget that New Mexico is even a state. So I encourage people to explore northern New Mexico, and then ease their way into mid to southern New Mexico. Right?
Slowly and safely. Yes.
We we may or may not have the National Guard called in right now in Albuquerque, but that's way far away from Santa Fe,
Yeah,
right?
that's fine.
That 45 minutes is such a distance.
Yes. We'll end that with a little reminder that our pastry chef had her car stolen while she was working at Elfrol, lived in Albuquerque.
That's right. That's right.
Yep. Oh, Taylor, we gotta love you. Cool. Thanks, Max.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. If you enjoyed this, please leave a review, like, share. The more people that we can reach, the more people we can help, and the more people we can bring this message to, a message of hope and possibilities in the service industry. Everyone who listens, thank you. You are my people. Keep rocking on and have a great service. And please come back and listen again. We send out new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. How about that? All right, see you soon.